The following podcast contains spoilers for Men from the Monastery, aka Dragon's Teeth, aka Disciples of Death, aka Shaolin ZD. You have been warned!
What's up, everybody? My name is Glenjamin Button, along with your host, Miguel Magusto. Oh, God, I'm right in the nipple. Why'd you do that?
I like your nipples. What?
Yes.
Yes. How's it going, Glenn?
It is going so good, my brethren. We watched movies. We watched movies. That's what this platform's all about. Because we're watching them and we're reviewing them. And
Spoiler
we did
alert,
them.
we've watched at least one film this week.
At least.
Now,
Between the both of us, I know we watched more than one.
Yes, the real question is, have you watched more than one, Glenn?
I have watched 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, including The Men from the Monastery.
Ooh.
Yeah. I kicked it up a little bit. There was
Yes, you did.
I have like these days where I'm just like, you know what, I'm just gonna watch like 4 movies today, and I do, and it feels good. But then I've got a whole week where I'm like, you know what, forget about movies.
Yeah.
And then there's another day, which is on Tuesdays, where I'm like, let's watch a bunch of movies again. So, To begin with, I think after when we recorded last time, I watched 3 movies. And then, of course, today before, I watched another 2, including R1. So, to begin with, I watched East Side Sushi, which came out in 2014, directed by Anthony Lucero. It's mostly like a Hispanic film about a Hispanic girl who's trying to like provide for her family, and like she's trying to stay in the food business. So she ends up getting hired at a Japanese restaurant, learning how to make sushi, and just trying to be a better chef and sushi chef, or like become one, period, because they're mostly Japanese men, as you can imagine. And it's a nice little up-and-coming story about how she's wanting to rise about being a sushi chef, and eventually, maybe she'll get there.
Ooh.
So it was a nice little heartwarming thing.
What's that called again?
East Side Sushi. That's on Netflix also.
Cool.
I saw it on there. I'm like, I could use some sushi. So I watched it, and now I'm hungry for sushi and never got any. So that was cool. The next one that I watched was Malcolm and Marie, which just came out this year. It's starring, John David Washington and Zendaya. I got yelled at because I said Zendaya a lot, and I got called a boomer. I was like, okay, hey, Zendaya, I guess.
From who?
Younger people.
Oh my God, younger people are the worst, but not as bad as boomers.
I was like,
But hey, until we destroy your economy and then blame it on you, you can't call us boomers, Gen Z.
Yeah, I was calling her Zendaya, and she's like, it's Zendaya, you freaking boomer. I'm like, all right. Anyway, so this was getting a lot of flack for basically John David Washington's kind of like he's like in his mid-30s, I believe. And Zendaya, whatever.
Let's just say Zendaya to piss them off.
Yeah, Zendaya. She's kind of younger. She's above 21, but like she's getting a lot of flack because she looks younger, and he's like this middle-aged man. But going into that, I didn't care about that. I was like, these are 2 really great actors of our time right now. I'm going to watch this film. I knew nothing about it other than these 2 are basically the only ones in it, they're literally the only 2 in it. And Sam Levinson directed it. I don't exactly remember what he did off the top of my head.
He did Euphoria.
Yeah, Euphoria actually also has Zendaya, so that makes sense that he probably snagged her up again for another role. But I had never watched any of the other things that he did besides that. I did want to watch Euphoria because it looked good, as far as that looked. But that's beside the point. This movie is what I'm talking about. This movie, the chemistry between these 2 and like how they work off of each other is so freaking phenomenal to me. I know a lot of people hated this movie because they were like, this is the most toxic thing I've ever seen. These people should just break up. Like this.
Well, that's the thing. Like, you don't have to like relationships and stories. Like, just because you think something's toxic does not mean that it is not a good story. Like, I mean, that's what there's a film from the 60s or 70s. I forget what I feel like it's was eating Virginia, not Gilbert Grape. Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf? I think it is.
I haven't watched it, but I'm going to agree with you.
Or it's something, I don't know. There's a few movies from that era that are like the same, but I'm pretty sure it's Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, and the entire thing is like a dinner party where one couple's like pretty normal, and then the host couple's like losing their mind and very toxic, and then like it's a classic. Like, you don't have to agree with a couple being together. Things don't need to be a good example of life.
Yeah.
For it to be high quality in art. Like, if art was always good people doing good things, it would be very boring.
Basically, the story's kind of about this filmmaker and his girlfriend come home from a premiere, and it went exceedingly well, and then it kind of goes downhill from here from the girlfriend's perspective, and then she shoots arguments back and forth, and then he shoots arguments back. I
thought you were about to say she shoots him. I'm like,
yeah,
dude,
she murders the man with words.
Spoiler alert, Jesus Christ.
No, I really want you to watch this, so I don't want to spoil too much, because I want to see your opinion on it as well. Anyway, I want you to watch it because I thought their relationship was great. I thought the way they talked to each other was great, and in a way I kind of like wish that I kind of had that without the toxicity, like to be open with somebody like they do in this movie. I want you to watch it. I want to talk to you more about it.
Yeah.
But I think, to me, these guys definitely deserve some sort of Oscar nomination in the slightest.
Yeah.
Because it was definitely noteworthy for me.
The only reason I haven't watched it yet, I think I told you this already. I thought it was directed by Lenny Abrahamson, who did Room and Frank and a few other great films.
Yeah.
And then I found out it was not Lenny Abrahamson. It was instead Sam Levinson, which I have no qualms with Sam Levinson. I don't think I've seen anything he's made, so I don't really have an opinion of him. But just the disappointment that it wasn't.
The disappointment that it wasn't that other guy.
Yeah.
Like, looking at the names, they're not the same, but they kind of are in a way.
if you just quickly glance at it like I did, it's like, okay.
Yeah, they're not even like this. It's just like two random names that kind of like look exactly the same in a way. It's kind of funny when you send it to me. Other than that, I watched A Monster Calls. That was a good little film.
First time watching it?
That was my first time watching it. I remember I wanted to see it with you when it was in theaters.
Yeah.
Monster Calls 2016, J.A. Boyana. It had Sigourney Weaver, Felicity Jones, Liam Neeson, and Louis Dougal. It's not as good as Dougal. It's not as good as I thought it was going to be, honestly.
Yeah, I was a little disappointed by it when I saw it. I still really like it, but that trailer is amazing.
Yeah, the trailer really kicks ass, and I actually hadn't really heard much about it like since it came out.
Yeah,
I just wanted to avoid it because I wanted to watch it on my own. But I didn't keep my expectations too high, but I was a little bit disappointed in it, but also it was a good story being told and how it was told and everything like that, which was really cool. And then the last one that I watched was War with Jason Statham and Jet Li from 2007, and man, did this movie eat complete ass.
It looks like it would.
I was kind of watching the background. I'm like, I'm gonna watch some fighting stuff. Like, get ready for this. I want to watch Jet Li and Jason Statham fight each other. And then it was a terrible plot with what could have been a good like twist, just with how it was handled. It was just abysmal to me. It was a good background movie, I will say that, to watch just like Jet Li just punching people and stuff like that. But other than that,
what year did that come out?
2007.
Okay.
So I know these guys did more movies together, and I'm trying to watch those. But other than that, this was a good like. Time waster.
Yeah. Now, that came out when I was working at the theater, but for some reason I have like a vivid memory of renting it from Hollywood Video.
Oh yeah, between that and Blockbuster, I think I had originally seen this from my dad picking up at Blockbuster, like not remembering.
It was definitely heavily advertised, but I'm also not 100% sure I rented it from Hollywood Video. I remember it vividly, but I don't because I don't remember the movie at all. I just remember the poster.
It wasn't that great. I will say that at all. Period. But having Jason Statham pass as American is always funny to me.
Did he pass or
no? He doesn't. That's the best part.
Yeah, definitely. So that's all you watched this week?
Yes, sir.
All right. Well, I watched 5 movies, including Men from the Monastery, so we're kind of in the same boat here. I also watched a mini docu-series, which I want to discuss, just because I saw a commercial that reminded me of it, like literally the day I finished watching it.
Okay.
The first one I watched was The Little Things with Denzel Washington, Rami Malek, and Jared Leto. For those of you who don't know, the Golden Globe nominations and SAG nominations came out last week, and Jared Leto was on both of them for supporting actor. And I was very upset about that, not because of Jared Leto, but also because of Jared Leto, but also because I feel like there are other supporting actors who deserve it more than him. So I went to watch this just to see what all the hullabaloo was about. Yes, I said hullabaloo, and I realized that does not help our boomer
I was about to say argument. The boomer argument is here now.
We're technically not boomers. Leave us alone. So I went to watch it. I went to hate watch it, if you will. Like I went in wanting to pick it apart.
Yep.
The movie itself is mediocre, but I gotta say, I understand why Jared Leto was nominated. He's actually very good in it. He's the only he's the best part of it. Yeah. However, I still feel other people deserved it over him, but I'm not as angry about it anymore.
Okay.
So that's The Little Things, a little cop drama about a serial killer.
Was he the serial killer?
He was. Well, that's the thing.
It makes sense now.
You might not find out. I'm not going to spoil it, but you might not find out. There's definitely questions about it. But
a little mystery. Yeah.
He is definitely, probably, possibly the serial killer.
Beautiful.
But yeah, it does have a nice little mystery, but it's definitely, they started like trying to get it made in the early 90s, and it feels like it has not been through a rewrite since the early 90s.
Okay.
So it does feel dated. It doesn't feel of the time, but it's an okay movie. Then I watched a international film from Denmark called Another Round with our boy Mads Mikkelsen. This is directed by the same guy who did The Hunt. So it's The Hunt director, something Vinterberg. I forget what his first name is. And Mads Mikkelsen getting back together. This is about essentially a group of teachers putting to test this theory that men are born with a blood alcohol level that is negative 0.05%. So that
interesting.
The reason many great writers and scientists and whatnot drink is because they work better when they drink.
Yeah.
So they put that to the test and spend like way too long drunk. And
I felt that in my heart just now. I feel personally attacked.
It goes pretty much as you would assume it does, but it's a really good movie. I'm not going to give any more away than that, but
this is one that was on my radar because I love Mads.
Yeah, Mads Mikkelsen, and but yeah, I highly suggest that one. That one's really good. Then I watched Men from the Monastery. We'll get to that in a second. Then I watched a documentary called Last Breath, which is about this. It follows the story. Again, it's a documentary, so it is true. This diver, deep sea diver that is the kind that like works on underwater oil rigs, like several 100 meters underneath the surface. He gets detached from his umbilical cord, like the thing that gives him hot water to keep him warm and oxygen and all that during a storm. And his backup reserve only has about 5 minutes of oxygen in it, but his rescue is like 30 minutes away.
Jesus.
So I'm not going to tell anything else about that, but it's a documentary following that story. It interviews the people actually in it. They do reenactments with the people who actually participated in it, but like they're not cheesy reenactments. They're like brilliantly shot and directed reenactments.
Okay.
That like if you told me these people were actors, I would believe you because they're that compelling, the reenactments. And it also has real footage from like security cameras of when it happened and everything.
That's pretty cool.
But yeah, that's called Last Breath. I believe that's on Netflix. It's either on Netflix, Hulu, or Amazon. It's on one of those three. But I highly suggest it. It's a very fast moving. It's an hour and a half, but it feels like 40 minutes. Like that's how fast it moves. And I really suggest it. Then me and some of my friends went to see The Lord of the Rings, Fellowship of the Ring in IMAX because they decided of all times now to re-release it in IMAX for the very first time. So we saw Fellowship of the Ring. You know, that's great as usual.
It is amazing.
Yeah, and I'm hoping that we get to see Two Towers and Return of the King as well, but that remains to be seen. And then we watched Challenge, or by we I mean me. I watched the mini docuseries Challenger: The Final Flight, which is about the space shuttle Challenger disaster that happened in '86, I believe, January 28th, '86. I feel like that's what it was. When they had a teacher who was going to be on that flight, and it unfortunately exploded during takeoff, and it kind of goes into the background, talks about the teacher a lot, which was nice, talks about all the astronauts, which I feel like the rest of the astronauts, because a civilian was in there, get overshadowed a lot by the fact that the civilian also died there. So it's like a nice little homage to them, and also kind of gives you a lot of information on what exactly happened. That is on Netflix. I highly suggest people check that out. And the reason I wanted to bring that up is because I saw a commercial. I think it's the SpaceX program is trying to get civilian participants to apply to a space shuttle program. That's probably not going to happen, or not space shuttle, but like one of their launches. That's probably not going to happen for like 5 to 10 years. But they're starting to get applicants already.
I know there would be a lot of people signing up for that for sure.
I, especially after watching Challenger, I am not one of them. I am fine being on Earth. I will die on Earth. I'm fine.
I'm okay here. I don't even go out of the state sometimes.
Yeah. I don't need to see space. I see space in movies. That's
space
good enough
be good
for me.
on my eyes when I look up.
Yeah. Oh, look at those stars.
A star.
Like when we were filming that movie, and there were so many stars compared to our light polluted area. Yeah.
It was insane.
Yeah. But that's all I watched. Let's get into some news. We got some sad news, unfortunately.
Do you want the sad news or the devastating news first?
I'll get the sad. Well, I don't know which one you're talking about, but I'll get this. I'll get to me, it's more devastating news.
Yes.
That Christopher Plummer unfortunately passed away on February 5th. I don't believe there is a cause of death released just yet. However, he was 91. So, apparently, literally just popped up. Complications from a fall. Which, that's sad, but he was 91. So, not to say that it makes it any less sad, but we lost a great actor who we actually just covered his movie The Exception a few weeks ago.
We actually just gave him a shelf point not that long ago.
Yeah, and he's a great actor. Often, even by me, overlooked just because he is such a, he becomes his characters in a way and isn't so much a personality himself.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's unfortunate. It's a big loss.
And to move on to another loss, Disney shutting down Ice Age animation studio Blue Sky. Those are the people who made such things as Ice Age 2, Ice Age 3, Ice Age 4, Ice Age 5. It's like, I don't know how many there actually are.
They also made Rio too, right?
I think they also did the Peanut movie. Yeah, Rio and the Peanuts movie that came out in 2015.
Which is a great movie if anyone hasn't seen it. The Peanuts movie is probably one of the best popular animated films.
But obviously the most noteworthy of their movies was obviously Ice Age. So I guess...
Which one? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6?
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, that's a 20-year-old studio that unfortunately is getting shut down. Whether or not they might pop back up in the future, who knows? But I know because of COVID, and also I think their last movie didn't feature too well. I know that for otherwise reasons, like they were doing pretty good. They were making money every time they were doing stuff. I don't know.
Yeah. But, my guess is that they're just going to consolidate everything into one studio. Well, 2 studios, because they're never going to consolidate Pixar into Disney Studios.
Yeah.
And if they do, I will riot, much like Trump supporters rioted at the Capitol.
Rain hellfire. That's what we'll do. That is what we'll do.
And I'll gladly turn myself into the FBI after that happens. That's a shame. But they already owned it, so it's not like I don't think much is going to change. They might not make another Ice Age movie, but
who knows? I think Spies in Disguise or whatever it was, Spies, whatever that's probably one that.
That one came out at the beginning of COVID. How can they really judge it from that?
So that's kind of the one that it didn't do well.
That's just not fair.
Yeah, it's really not. But other than that, we can kind of feel like
we can move on. We can move on to Men from the Monastery, aka Dragon's Teeth, aka Disciples of Death, aka Shaolin ZD.
My father was murdered, and you know it too.
He killed himself, and that is that. You, Chen, you want trouble?
You're just protecting Chin Lun. I'm going to get them, though.
Now Chin Chung and his men have raised Shaolin. And as long as we live, we shall fight.
Men from the Monastery. And now I have to pull up the full summary because it's a long one. When the godfather of Kung Fu film, Chang Cheh, decided to tell their stories with Alexander Fusheng, Chen Tai, and Chi Quan Chun in the roles, it was a cause for celebration. The film is one of the most beloved in the director's filmography. Each hero is given his own story, and when they all come together in a final, day-long battle with hundreds of troops, the effect is unforgettable. Mm-hmm. That felt good. I like that.
Yeah, it did. That was, you stumbled a bit, but it's fine with how long it was.
It was the names. I always stumble on names.
That's perfectly fine. And now it's my turn to try the names. Directed by Che Chang, written by Che Chang and Kwang Ni. It is starring Quan Tai Chang, Shang Fu, Quan Chung Chi, and Chi Hong Chang, and many more. And yeah, this was a streaming roulette pick. And
not technically, but yes, it was
not
eventually.
Technically, but then also eventually
we made it so.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun watching this movie. It was I've seen kung fu movies, but not from this era before. At least not that I can remember. So it was the first time seeing a 70s kung fu film with all the ridiculous fighting and
the blood.
Yeah, it takes no time getting going either. It's like right out of the gate.
Kicks right into gear.
Yeah. So yeah, where do we start with this one?
I mean, we can talk about how it's laid out. So the movie is basically, it's three different. If you didn't catch the synopsis there, it's three different tales combined into one movie. It's like three different men, how they gather together, and what happens towards the end when they all do gather together. Yeah. I gotta remember which one started first. It was.
I think it was Fang Shi Yu, which is played by Shang Fu. Actually, no, I'm certain it was him because he's the one that goes down the hallway and fights two people every time.
Was it Shang Fu? This is the. I kept getting mixed between the two or three guys all the time, and it made my brain hurt. Mm-hmm. One of them has a fan. And he was the original first character.
Yeah, that was Shang Fu. Oh, the actor's name is Shang Fu. Character's name is Fang Shi Yu.
Yeah. So it starts off with him, this little cocky dude who bathed in tonic water and basically is kind of invincible, which the tale goes.
Kind of like a Greek mythology with Achilles, where his mother dipped him into a river that made him immortal, but her hand covering his Achilles made him thing. And instead, in this one, his taint is very sensitive.
The old scrote,
And honestly, I know that probably in Chinese culture and maybe even in American culture back then was not funny.
Yeah.
but I couldn't help but think it was funny.
Oh, absolutely, especially when it happens. Like when they say it in the beginning, you're kind of like, oh, okay, it's kind of random.
Yeah.
He's like, they make sure you stab him upwards when he's in the air. Is
right
kind
in
of
the
what they
taint.
say in the beginning.
Right in the taint.
And then towards the end of the movie, I mean, we're catching up way faster than we should. But maybe it happens, maybe it doesn't. Let's get there. So it tells the story about him. Basically, he has to go through this kind of a test to see if he's strong enough to proceed from where he stands in the Shaolin schooling, and he has to fight the wooden men. I can't remember the name of it, but it's like these wooden men guys. You have to surpass this test, pass these like 8 dudes to fight, and eventually he does.
Yeah.
And then one of his friends, a couple years later, meets up with him, or they meet each other again, and then they're like, "Hey, you're gonna learn how to, balance on poles and fight," and then that guy dies, and then he avenges
gets brutally murdered with an axe.
100%.
Like in a completely unfair fight, and like
it's like 6 dudes in him.
6 dudes in him, and then one of the dudes has an axe and hits him while he's fighting someone else. Like it is insane, but it also led up to one of the coolest segments in this film, which is when Feng Shiyu fights the guy that killed his friend on the poles. I forget exactly what the name was, but it was like this trial that they had to fight while standing on multiple poles, like a grid of poles, and then in the empty spaces where they could fall were sharpened bamboo.
Yeah, it was in a pit of sharpened bamboo at the bottom.
Yeah, and that segment was just really interesting and cool to watch, and it had great choreography. It really like upped the intensity in my opinion.
Yeah.
And also just the violence was something that was not really seen in American films back then.
There was
American mainstream.
going on.
Yeah, American mainstream films. I mean, you obviously had the Texas Chainsaw Massacre was around this time, but that wasn't mainstream until I think a few years later. But it was just really, the choreography was just amazing, which I fully expected it to with being a kung fu film.
Yeah. So you had that little revenge story at the end there where he's trying to avenge his friend that was trying to teach him how to, first off fight on these poles, and then he ends up killing it. I think was it like a rival school? It was like a rival school that he was like.
I think the entire thing is like rivalries between schools. And then
eventually get the government gets involved a little bit.
Yeah. The government and his Fang Shiyu's uncle gets involved, which I believe his whole thing was that he was trying to start like a rival school or whatever. I don't even know what his uncle did or where he lived in the beginning, and how that adds up to...
He even protected him in the beginning.
Yeah.
Maybe he just became too much that he wanted to put things into his own hands, at the end. But who's after that? Was it Hung? I think Hung's after. Let me take a gander.
Yeah, the second one. See, Fang Shiyu is the most memorable to me.
Yeah, it's Hung is the next one. The next story. So like these stories of these men take place in like kind of 15-minute increments, and then they all gather together for like the last act and go all balls out. But Hung's story was basically. He was this one guy whose father ends up getting killed while gambling, and then
the government doesn't even do anything.
Yeah,
about
they don't do anything when he tries to do something.
Like, he died of natural
him.
causes. You're like, natural causes. He was stabbed 18 times.
He has bruises all over his body.
Yeah, that's right. He wasn't stabbed. It was just bruises.
So like he's trying to avenge his father's death because the people who killed him was actually
a rival school.
Yeah, it was like it was a monk rival school again. So he went in there balls blazing, punching everybody in the face, but also getting his ass kicked multiple times in many fights.
Yeah.
And then eventually we get Shang Fu, who comes back otherwise known as Fang, as the actual character. He comes by and he helps the man out for a good 3 years, teaches him the way of his fists, and then the man comes back, and lo and behold, he kicks their fucking ass.
Yeah.
Which was really cool. And between just beginning with these two fights alone, like these two like sequences of like characters, there's a lot of fights that go on, and this is like half an hour.
That's an understatement.
Yeah, there's a lot of fighting in this half hour, and this is just between the two stories, half an hour of a lot of fighting going on, and they're really well done.
Yeah.
And then you got anything to say before I move on to the last character?
Not something that would not break the flow. So let's just go with the last character and then get into other stuff.
And then you have the last character here, who I might need more help with this story because it was a little bit confusing to me.
Well, it was confusing to me as well. So.
Whose character, which he's kind of like different from the other two, where now the government's kind of involved, I think. And I'm sorry if I could be wrong. It was kind of hard to keep up with because it is a lot happening very fast.
And it's one of the rare movies where I feel like subtitles was more of a hindrance.
Yeah.
Just because you have to read, but then a lot of them go by really quickly because in Mandarin you can say a lot more in a small amount of time.
Yeah, because there was so much happening that it definitely was hard to keep up with, and then you're also reading on top of it, and then you're kind of getting names mixed up and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty sure with whose character, the government actually started getting involved, and then so did who, and then basically with whose character, I think that he ended up like trying to help in some way with all these like monk rivalries, and then ended up getting a bounty put on him, and then like the people from his school ended up getting like killed off because they're trying to get to who. I could be wrong, but that's how I got the gist out of it.
That's what I got out of it too. But if I'm honest, like this was definitely, I'm with you. It was the most confusing one.
Yeah. So like just because you already got the basis of the other two characters, and then they throw you into another one where you're learning there's a lot of people to look at in whose as well. So you're kind of getting a lot from his. You're kind of being overburdened by his the most, not burdened, but like overwhelmed. So the government starts getting involved, and then one of his friends are captured, and then he has to combine forces, get some allies to fight the government because they're starting to get involved.
You gotta fight the government.
You gotta fight the government, man. They're not doing what they need to do, which is help the little people, and the little people are getting bullied, and that's what this thing comes into, which is they're basically the three musketeers here.
Yeah.
So they're
the men from the Monastery. God damn it!
The dragon's teeth.
The disciples of death.
Exactly.
The Shaolin ZD.
Yep. So now you've got this final act where they're all coming together, which is pretty cool, and then you've got this whole shebang. They've been taking refuge in this old abandoned monk temple, or not temple, but this school, and they've been trying to gather forces so they can fight on these people, and then they get a little bit of ambushed. A little bit of ambush. It's like a really, really long fight and the most badass scenes to ever happen.
Yeah, the ending fight was definitely my favorite part.
Somebody gets stabbed in the taint.
Someone gets stabbed in the taint. And also at some point it changes from color to black and white.
Yeah, and then sepia as well.
Yeah, I'm curious if that was an artistic decision or if the censors forced them to.
Yeah.
Because I could see it go either way. Because just by looking at it in black and white, there's a lot more blood.
A lot of liquids going on in there.
Yeah, and then it goes back to color, which makes me think that it was just that segment was a little too gory for the censors back then. But honestly, like it kind of made it cool in a way.
Yeah, especially when one person ends up getting stabbed and it flashes to this red, and then it changes the tint, obviously, of the film to like I think it was the sepia. It was cool. Maybe a little bit longer than it should have. I mean, again, the choices there are kind of unknown to us, at least, as to why it went so long. But for sure, It was a cool moment, and I liked the flashes of when people got stabbed. It kind of felt like a really old classic movie where like it just was like, kink.
Yeah, I also like the assistance of the sound effects. There's like different sounds for when things were blocked and different sounds for when things hit. Similar to how it is today, but back then they repeated them instead of having different ones for each hit.
Yeah.
So it was kind of funny in that respect. I really like the style of this whole film. It kind of, in a way, this is going to sound really weird. It reminded me stylistically of West Side Story, specifically the beginning opening like credit sequence when it has like the columns and lines of people doing kung fu, and it just gave me such West Side Story vibes without the snapping and singing. Obviously,
you heard it here first, folks. If you watched West Side Story, definitely give Men from the Monastery a watch.
Yeah,
you'll love it.
They're spiritual successors, really. No, not really. Just in that beginning sequence.
Yeah, just the way it felt.
And then the gang violence, of course, which is kind of humorous in its own respect at certain times. But yeah, this film is just the best of 70s actions movies, in my opinion. The tagline, you're going to love this tagline. It's down, it's dirty, it's deadly, and they're damned in a kung fu inferno of blood and guts.
I mean, they're not lying. It was definitely a lot of blood and guts.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely loved, I think the most about this was how much fighting there was, how much fight choreography there was.
Absolutely.
And how much they made that the focus, because they were all fighting for something. Each character, each story they were telling, and then when they finally came together, fighting until the end. It was really cool of how they did that, you know. And I mean, even the characters, I mean, the only one that I hated, like not hated, just kind of disliked, because he's so fucking cocky about himself at all times, is Fang with the fan. He's like, to me, that guy at the bar who snaps his finger at the bartenders trying to get a drink. I'm like, come on, man.
I loved and hated him in that sense.
But like, you understand it, because this man is basically invincible. He has every right to be cocky until he gets stabbed in the taint.
He got stabbed in the taint. And then when he takes the sword out of his taint, they put that actor in serious harm because they threw that sword up in the air.
He threw that thing and it launched right next to his taint again.
It landed right next to his taint and stuck in the ground. So it was a real, at least, like, I don't think it would have done like severe damage, but it would have hurt at the very least.
From that altitude and the way it was going, it could have done something.
Yeah,
but
he could have been stabbing the taint all over again.
It looked really cool. So that was cool.
Cool for the 70s.
Well, yeah, absolutely.
It's kind of humorous today.
My man took the sword out of his bum and said, "Yeet!" Threw it in the air, and then it landed on the ground all in one shot. It was beautiful.
I'll show you to stick in my taint.
Let me show you something, friend. So I mean, that was really cool. Just the aspect of the fighting and choreography.
He died instantly. From being stabbed in the taint, he died instantly.
I mean, I would too, if I'm being honest. I wouldn't want to live a moment after that.
If I'm honest, you probably wouldn't. You probably would want to.
I would absolutely want to. I'm like, this man just stabbed me in the taint deliciousness. I'm gonna die now.
How many times can we say taint on this podcast?
I was about to say, I'm worried there's gonna be a counter at some point.
Oh man. But how did you feel about the hair scarves? That's what I want to know.
I was kind of digging it, but then I imagined how much sweat like they were like producing and how much was getting in the hair. I'm like, that's kind of cool. I never kind of really seen that before.
Yeah, and then you're like, ooh.
And I played a lot of Tekken, okay?
As we all know, Tekken is known for its accuracy.
I was about to say, they do really well with like the fighting styles of each different character. Anyway, moving on. But But yeah, when they did the hair thing, like there was one prominent character which was Hung, who actually did that the most. So you knew exactly which character was which just by who was flinging their hair around their neck the fastest, which was his, all the time. So like that was really cool. But no, my God, the amount of sweat that was probably built into those little braids is beyond insanity. There we go.
Yeah.
Which story did you like the most?
Which story?
Yeah. Before they all collided.
Probably the middle one, Hung, I think his name is.
Yeah.
His was the most compelling with the revenge aspect. Mm-hmm. And also you really rooted for him to get to...
yeah.
His took the longer for him to finding out that his dad died and then finally getting revenge. Whereas Fang's, the revenge was almost immediate. Like, it was right
he literally
after
went from poles to poles and was like, I'm beating your ass now.
And then Who, like I said, I don't really...
Who's was definitely the most confusing.
Yeah, that's not to say it's bad, but it was definitely the most confusing.
It was the most confusing because it didn't really... Whose story actually, it didn't really have at least as much in comparison as the others, like, did. I'm done.
I would agree. And... it kind of felt, just from what like I did gather from it, that it was like they're like, oh shit, we're already 40 minutes into this, and we need to introduce one other character before getting into the big fight sequence in the end.
His was more of like the final straw of they all need to gather together, you know? Yeah. So it was a setup to the final act, is what his was for sure.
So it was needed. It was just But I think Hung is his is definitely the most compelling.
Mm-hmm. I guess we talk a lot of positives. I guess I'll talk about some of the negatives that I didn't really enjoy about it. Is that you don't really get a standing for things that take place, like so it kind of all happens so fast, like just period between the three characters. In one point in Hung's, 3 years pass and you don't know it really, for me, until he says, he's been training for 3 years. I was like, that was 3 seconds ago.
That
was nuts.
I would agree. Not only that, but along with their ideals as well. Like, they say that like the government is mad at their ideals, but they never express what their ideals are. Mm-hmm. And also, but I mean, that's semantics when you come to like an action kung fu movie. That's like, most people are not there for the details of why their school is being ostracized and no one else's is.
Yeah, but I mean, none of that was. I mean, the moral was there. Is like, hey, they're not treating us right, you know. Like at least as far as the rival schools went, and then the government stepped in and they weren't doing anything morally right. But you know, there was like. It was definitely an underdog story, period. Like I said earlier, I read this, so I can't take the credit for it. It was like a Three Musketeers thing where they all came together, had a bout, and then eventually, maybe sadly, lost.
Maybe we have
who knows? It couldn't be me. I wasn't stabbed in the taint.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I really enjoyed this movie. It was just hard to keep track of everything that was going on because it was happening so fast, and also the time frames. I mean, this movie could have definitely helped itself with another maybe 10 minutes of like leeway for sure.
Yeah, I'd agree. Yep.
But I mean, this was the 70s, so I mean, maybe it was a little bit harder to do that in the first place.
Yeah.
Especially with so much fighting going on and ass kicking. I don't blame them for doing what they did in the slightest.
Absolutely. I don't really have too much to say about it.
Mm-hmm.
Left, at least. Obviously, we've talked quite a deal about it. But, if you don't have anything, we can get into the judgment.
I think so, too.
All right. So, Glenn, just because I don't like picking or making decisions first.
Well,
and no other reason.
This week's your week to pick first, so good luck.
No!
You can't always rely on me, brother.
So does Men from the Monastery, a.k.a. Dragon's Teeth, a.k.a. Disciples of Death, a.k.a. Shaolin ZD, make it onto the shelf? Glenn, what do you think?
We can talk about it. It's fine.
We can talk about it.
It's tough, you know?
Because it's not a particularly remarkable film.
Yes.
But I had a shit ton of fun watching it.
As far as I'm getting from the movie, this was that underdog type of movie. Apparently, this is like a actually solid movie from what I'm reading about it, like overseas.
Yeah.
So maybe it is superbly loved. I mean, the fighting was fantastic. The choreography was great. The stories were hard to keep up with, which kind of dulls it down a little bit for me.
Yeah.
The characters were fun, but again, like it all was just going so fast that it just kind of hurt itself in a way.
Mm-hmm.
So it's tough, and I don't really honestly know, but if I have to think about it, it's probably a no. Like if I have to like really think about it,
I would agree. I'm sure there are a lot better kung fu films to go on. Not that we can only pick one or whatever, but like this was a fun movie, but it has just enough problems where like I mean, probably won't recommend it to people, honestly.
Yeah, it doesn't like stand up to like Legend of the Drunken Master or anything like that to me.
I haven't seen that, but yeah, sure.
Or Kung Fu Hustle, but that was like a completely different style in a way. So those were like to name the two biggest off the top of my head, at least.
And I don't really have much knowledge of a kung fu movie, so. But yeah, it's a no for me.
That's then that is the unanimous.
Yeah. So, Men from the Monastery, aka Dragon's Teeth, aka Disciples of Death, aka Shaolin ZD, does not make it on the shelf with the likes of Apostle and Handmaiden. That brings us to our plugs for this week. Glenn Jotman Buckton. What is your plug for this week?
So, this is going to be kind of a funny one. Not really cringy in any way. There's kind of like a song in one of the animes that I watched recently, a couple months ago, called Berserk, that has just kind of been stuck in my head. And I've been playing games kind of like in my free time, just relaxing, you know. It was like games where I just run around and punch blocks and stuff like that. And from that anime Berserk, there's the theme of Guts' theme, whatever you want to call it, which is it's like a 3.5 minute song, but it's like so powerful and kind of moves you that like even punching a block, you're sitting there contemplating life on what you're doing in life, contemplating punching this block while contemplating life while punching the block. And it really puts you in your feels, and I really enjoy it. So my plug is going to be Guts, or the theme of Guts from Berserk. It's a beautiful song and it makes me cry and I want to punch a block and think about life.
Yeah.
So Mike, what is your plug?
That was a beautiful plug. My
Thank
plug.
you.
So this past Saturday, I attended my very first virtual concert, which was held by Silent Planet. Holy fucking shit, they did not need to go as hard as they did.
But they do.
But also at the same time, I just completely felt bad for people who didn't have surround sound and didn't have lighting in their basement that can like go to the beat and everything.
I can imagine how the basement was doing after that concert.
I have plenty of videos I can show you.
Imagine water bottles everywhere, blood somewhere a little bit in the corner.
All drank by me, all my blood. But yeah, so their concert was incredible, and I just want to give them a little plugsy. If you are into post-hardcore, hardcore, heavy metal, whatever, just heavier music in general, check them out. Their lyrics are incredible.
They really are. I can atone for this as well.
And so just the band Silent Planet. And Glenn, you can just put whatever Silent Planet song is your favorite.
I'll do my best
in this part.
Maybe I'll put the concert in there. I'll try to.
But yeah, so Silent Planet, and what was yours again? Some song from Berserk?
There's the theme of Guts from Berserk, yeah.
The theme of Gods from Berserk, or Guts from Berserk, whatever the hell you just said.
I'll figure it out.
Yeah, those are our plugs for this week. That brings us to our assignment for next week. It is my turn to decide, Glenn. And I have a question for you before I get started. Have you signed into the Criterion channel yet?
I have not, but I will be for sure after this episode.
Yes, because the film that I am putting in as our assignment is on the Criterion channel app. If you don't have the Criterion channel, you can do like a week's. I think it's a week free that you can check it out, and
a little free trial.
If you cancel it after that, I don't really care. I'm not getting money for plugging them. But it is also available on Amazon Prime to rent if you want to rent it. But I do suggest just checking out Criterion Channel because it is great. But the film is going to be from 2015, Victoria, which is a one-shot film, and not one shot like made to look like one shot. It is literally one shot, completely one shot. Shot over 2 hours, in one morning. I think they got the third take is the take that is the actual film. It is directed by Sebastian Schipper, written by Sebastian Schipper and Olivia Nygaard-Holm and Elke Frederick Schultz. It's starring Laia Costa, Frederick Lau, Franz Rogowski, and Burak Yigit, and it is about a young Spanish woman who has recently moved to Berlin finds her flirtation with a local guy turned potentially deadly as their night out with friends reveals a dangerous secret.
We have to do something. Please, can you help us?
Okay.
Yeah?
No problem. I'm the big driver.
Yeah.
What's happening?
Deiner Privatbank, Limburg & Co. Wir wissen, dass in dem kleinen Tresor 50.000 € liegen. Und die will ich haben. Du schuldest mir was. Machen wir nicht. Hey.
Hey!
Hey, wir machen safe. Hey, wir machen schon. You don't have to do this. Really, you don't have to do this.
Sona, I want to go with you.
Guy, I did a bad thing, okay? Victoria, I'm sorry. I'm very sorry.
I'm gonna take the baby because we need your help. Come on!
So that is Victoria. Again, one shot, one literal shot, not made to look like one shot. And we'll do some research to talk about some of the messed up shots or how this take was
just
almost
how
messed
it was
up.
done.
How it was done. So yeah, that is Victoria on Criterion Channel, but you can also rent it on Amazon Prime if you wish. And that is our assignment for next week. Glenn, are you excited?
I'm always excited, man.
Yeah.
Especially with one-shots. They're always great.
Yeah, do me a favor and try to log into Criterion Channel before Tuesday just to make sure that you can get access to it.
I'll do it after this right here.
Yeah. Victoria is our assignment for next week. Thank you, everyone, for listening. As always, you can check out our website, KeystoneFilmReview.com, on Instagram, Keystone_Film_Review, Twitter, Keystone_Film, Facebook, Keystone Film Review, YouTube, Keystone Film Review, and baby, we're going to put some stuff on there soon.
We'll be back soon.
Yes, we will. And on Letterboxd, almost forgot this part. Letterboxd, I am Mike KFR.
And I am Glenn KFR.
And that will do it until next week when we talk about just one shot. It's just one shot. It's a one-shot movie.
It's one shot. Do not miss your chance to blow.
Mom spaghetti.
Oh, I'm hungry now. Thanks.
We're not boomers.